not gonna give up yet. If fish can live underwater, then so can I.
What's up, boys? Welcome to What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Grey, the movie. This is all the combined parts from the prior videos I've made, which are linked in the description to the playlist if you want to watch that instead of watching this movie completely. The movie is going to stretch more than 40 minutes long. The video has more than 4 parts of this series altogether. So if you guys want to show support for this channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Helps us out immensely. And also drop a like down below as well, because that lets me know you guys still actually watch my stuff. I've been gone for 4 years, and I've been inconsistent as anyone could be. So without keeping you for long, let's begin. Up, Izuku said, but the moment he got up, he felt a giant weight on his shoulders, like it was being put there automatically the moment he left his bed. Izuku jumped up from his bed, realizing his body started shaking rapidly. What the fuck? Izuku said internally, as Izuku turned his body around to see nothing but ice. Wait, did I accidentally do this in my sleep? How? Izuku said. Izuku was about to shrug it off before some random ice particles started to shoot out of his hands once more. Okay, this is fucking weird, Izuku said, as Izuku just said, maybe it's build-up? Let me just go outside really quick. As Izuku opened his balcony door, as Izuku shot some ice shards out of his window, this almost fixing it, but Izuku let out some more, fixing it entirely, as Izuku went downstairs and got ready to have his second day of UA, as Izuku rushed out his door, running downstairs bottom of his apartment complex. Izuku arrived at the bottom as he instantly sprinted for the train station, arriving there just on time, just to catch his train, as someone on there actually noticed him. Hey, you're that kid from the sludge building incident, the man shouted, as a bunch of other people would have remembered this as they looked over at Izuku's main direction. Yeah, that is the kid. Yo, let's go get a picture with him, they said, as most of the people there actually took a picture with Izuku, them being excited to take a photo with him because he met the #1 hero. Of course they would be, as they started to bombard Izuku with a bunch of questions, asking him, what's the #1 hero like? How tall is he? What's he like in person? They all started saying in Izuku's direction. Izuku started to stutter before he was pulled back by a purple-haired girl. Hey Izuku, come on, we're gonna be late, she said, as she pulled Izuku by his right arm. This making most of them back forward and back up a little bit, because most of them still wanted to know what All Might was like in person, as Jiro grabbed Izuku's arm and started to grab him more and more further off the train until they finally arrived at their destination at UA, as Izuku would have gone to the front gates to realize a girl with blonde hair and blue eyes was standing there in a UA uniform, as Izuku would have ran up to her and just said, Melissa! Izuku shouted at the top of his lungs, as she turned around and tried to actually embrace him in a hug, which was reciprocated. How long's it been? Melissa said. Well, it's only been 2 months, Izuku said, laughing. We've only met 2 months ago in person, and since then we've been actually talking to each other through voice or mail. I'm just making a random app up. As Jiro would have walked up to Izuku and Melissa, asking Izuku who this person was. Izuku would have introduced her to Melissa, as Melissa introduced her to him, and so on and so forth, as Melissa and Jiro was both staring at each other intently. So we better get to class now then. Let's go then, Izuku said, trying to divide the conversation. As Izuku and Melissa both hugged each other as they went each other's different ways. As Aizawa would have told everyone to get into their hero costumes now, but before he could say any of that, a loud noise could be heard. I am here in a bizarre position! All Might came rushing into the room. I do apologize if I raped you. As All Might said, you can't be a hero without your costumes. So, everyone put this on and meet me outside in ground beta. All Might said, pushing a button as the hero suits revealed. The other thing that'll be different in this timeline will be Izuku's clothing. It'll be more looking like Gray's in this timeline with his shirt off with like a little... Well, if you've seen Fairy Tail, you should know. as everyone came rushing out like cannon, but the only person who was lagging behind in this timeline would be Oraka, as Oraka came rushing out of the room. "Sorry, I'm late. My costume's skin tight, I do apologize," Oraka said, heavy breathing, as mostly everyone after that came into the rooms, or outside into the bound area. As All Might explained to them what they will be doing team battles. The first team would be the villains, the second team would be the heroes, and the heroes will be trying to get the bomb while the villains defend it. The heroes are allowed to try and take down the villains by enough force as possible, but you're not allowed to injure them to the point near death, All Might said. "Damn it!" Bakugo said, growling his teeth like a Pomeranian, as All Might would have picked up on that. "Katsuki, calm down," All Might said, as All Might would have pricked all the lots and every single team would have been like cannon. Deku and Araka would have been waiting outside of the building, waiting for everyone to set up everything in the building, as Bakugo and Ida would have given the thumbs up to the camera, telling them they'll be ready as the countdown began. As Izuku started to make up a plan, starting to figure out all of the weaknesses he could exploit everything, as Izuku relayed some information to Ochako what they could do for their plan so far, as Izuku and Araka would have made it into the building same like cannon, but in this time Izuku would have freezed down the walls, making it a little bit more slippier for Bakugo. I know what you guys are thinking, Izuku should freeze the entire building because he doesn't have a limit on his magic. Technically he does, it drains his stamina quite frequently, but he doesn't get frostbite, so yikes. As Izuku freezed half through the building, just as so Bakugo had a lot more trouble to do so. As Izuku told Araka to start running to the way that's dry. As the battle commenced like cannon, but Bakugo would have been put more and more on edge because he couldn't land on the floor, so he was forced to levitate using his explosions to best he could. But this doesn't stop Izuku from actually being hit by it, of course. Most of the shockwaves that Bakugo was causing off from his explosion from his hands were stopping Izuku from getting close, so Izuku was forced to do long-range attacks. Ice shard after ice shard was thrown at Bakugo, most of them piercing into his skin, but not piercing like puncturing, more like piercing and like cutting him and bruising him internally, that type of stuff. As the fight went on for another 2 minutes, as Izuku finally had enough, as Izuku started to throw a giant iceberg the size of the room at Bakugo, blocking him off. Bakugo had no time to dodge, so his best bet was to explode the bottom of the floor to try and get away from it. He did this and succeeded, being at the bottom of Izuku, with Izuku not knowing where he is. Seeing the explosion bottom of the roof or the floor, Izuku had a rough understanding what would have happened. Izuku would have just ran straight to Araka, as Bakugo would have jumped out from behind him saying, "Come here, you damn nerd!" As Bakugo pulled the gauntlet, or the pin out of his gauntlet, blowing up the rest of the room. As the explosion traveled all the way to Izuku, Izuku only found one way out of this, to blind block the explosion, which he can as the most densest ice he could summon at the very moment. As Izuku summoned a giant wall of ice and kept on adding layers to the ice wall, creating more and more layers on top of what he already created. As the explosion reached over to Izuku, knocking him back into a wall, almost breaking his back. "Damn it, that fucking hurt," Izuku said, trying to get up. Izuku said, as All Might shouted over the intercom, "Young Midori, you okay? Bakugo Katsuki, pull another trick like that again, this exercise will be over," All Might said, as Bakugo just scoffed at it. "Whatever, old man," as Bakugo wasted no time and threw himself at Izuku, throwing an explosion at him, with Izuku blocking with a wall of ice. As Izuku finally had enough, as Izuku crowded the entire building in ice, forcing his team to automatically win, for all of the enemy team being invalidly knocked out of the round, making Izuku's team win automatically. As we cut back to actually Ida's point of view. "Where can I move? I'm stuck," he said, trying to move his entire body with all of his body being froze, leaving just the head so he could breathe. As Izuku and everyone else actually came to them trying to pry them out the ice, but Izuku didn't know how to melt them at this point, so yikes, this is going to be a long difficult journey, he said internally, as Todoroki just came over saying, I'll melt it, he said in his edgy gothy tone, as Todoroki melted them all out the ice, just leaving Bakugo frozen solid in the ice. Because you know we hate Bakugo with a passion on this channel. Everyone came into the observation room and everyone was staring at Izuku. Everyone thinking he was so cool from using his quirk, but All Might stoned at him or scolded him for using his quirk so recklessly like that. To everyone's dismay, everyone still praised him. As for the MVP, everything would have gone like the original. Ida would have got MVP and every single round after this would have been the same like canon. After their little events that happened in their Heroes vs. Villains, everyone went for their dinners, and everything like that would have stayed like the original, with the alarm going off. As everyone was rushing through corridors, Izuku managed to actually notice there was like some weird people outside. Izuku went to go to the front window and saw there was reporters there. Izuku could barely move, but the only idea he had at the time was to pull a giant pillar into the air. Izuku had no time, however, as he was knocked onto his back as he was being trampled. As the only person who was next to him at that time was Uraraka and Jiro. As Jiro shouted at Uraraka to try and touch Izuku the fastest she can. As Uraraka went down and touched Izuku to make him weightless, which was perceived as Jiro wrapped her earlobe around to Izuku's leg, tossing him into the air. As Izuku finally got some breathing room, as he threw the entire corridor full of ice to try and slow people down and try and make their blood flow a little bit slower so they don't have to run. As Izuku shouted down into the corridors, telling everyone to shut up, as everyone did. As Izuku explained what was happening like the original, but instead of Ida, it's Izuku in his place. Izuku explained why every single bit of the media is outside, as everyone calmed down and went back to their classes like normal. As for the president and vice president, it will stay the same like the original with Izuku and Momo, but Izuku is insanely more confident than the original, so Izuku would be in that place instead. As the day finally ended, as Izuku just stretched, moving left to right, stretching his arms into the air, like what muscle men do when they're warming up. As Izuku was going outside the front door, as he saw Melissa. Oh, hi Melissa, what's up? Izuku said. As Melissa just grabbed his arm as they ran down to the corridor, with Jiro being really confused at this. As Melissa just came to a screaming halt outside of their little area, as Melissa finally pulled out what she wanted to say. Izuku, who is that girl mean to you? She said. What? Izuku said. What do you mean, Melissa? Who? That earlobe Jiro girl, he said. Oh, you mean Jiro? Oh, he's just a friend, Izuku said. Whew. So that's the thing I wanted, that's all. Alright, bye Izuku, she said, rushing off back to the support course. As Izuku just sat there confused as he knocked himself out of it. That was confusing, Izuku said. Well, I should go back home and rest. We have a big day tomorrow. We're meant to be going to something called the USJ, Izuku said, as Izuku started to walk home. As the next day arose, Izuku was getting ready to actually leave his home as his Inko, his mother, stopped him. Izuku, you packed everything? Iron and dandy? She said. As Izuku just said, yeah mom, I've got everything. I'll see you in a little bit, okay? Izuku said, rushing out the front door. As this is where we're going to leave the video off, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And off with the perspective of Izuku Midoriya. 5 days after when Izuku met Melissa, Izuku continuously trained with All Might, perfecting his extra skills and his more control of his own power. Now Izuku's able to actually summon giant ice sculptures when he was practicing on the water, As from how to got rid of it, All Might would try and teach him how to actually melt it, but Izuku couldn't do that at this very moment. So All Might just punched it to get rid of it. All Might decided to thinking he may not get enough practice with him alone, so All Might decided to call up an extra teacher that he had a while back that taught him how to do combat and trained him how to use his quirk. As All Might started shivering the moment he picked up the phone. Hi, All Might said, shivering in his boots. How long's it been? Toshinori, Gantorino said through the phone, scaring the shit out of All Might. All Might explained to Gran Torino that he might need some help with his, quote-unquote, successor, All Might was saying. This was the only way to actually get Gran Torino to come and help him, of course. As Gran Torino came and helped train Izuku for another 2 months, with Izuku being around Melissa a lot more and more, with them becoming bestest of friends. You could actually mistake them for dating half the time. As for Izuku's training, how that all went off, Izuku would have figured out how to conjure little bits of ice magic into little, what Diamond Head basically does when he shoots out little icicles out of his hands. The next few days, Izuku's been training with All Might, as one day Izuku would have got a call from his mother, asking him where has he been going for the past couple of days. Our mom said Izuku would have replied saying, I've been training in secret, Izuku said. Well, you do that anyways, so what's the difference here? You've been getting a lot more recently, Inka said, worried. There's no need to worry about it, Mom, it's okay, Izuku said. Well, I'm coming over to where you are right now to see what you're doing, she said as she hung up the phone. As Izuku sat there for 25 minutes waiting for his mother to arrive, as someone closed his eyes at the back of him, as the person just said, "Guess who?" she said, as Izuku moved her arms away. "Let me guess, Melissa," he said, as she just smiled and hugged him, with her breast pinched against his neck, as Izuku just let out a slight blush at this moment. Little nosebleed in that. At this moment, this was very awkward, as Inko came around the corner, looking at Izuku and Melissa in a weird state, as she just coughed at them. She said, as she rushed over to Izuku. "When were you going to introduce me to her?" Inko said, as Izuku just was puzzled at this with Melissa's blushing face. We're not dating," Melissa said, blushing like mad, with her speech slurred, as Izuku replied saying, "Yeah, we're not dating yet, I don't think." Izuku looking over at Melissa, with her blushing even more, being put on the spot. We're not dating," she said. "We're just really good friends." "Oh, are you?" she said, as Inka just wrapped her arm around Melissa, dragging her to the side. "So, what do you think about my boy, hey?" she said, as made Melissa blush even more, her temperature spiking, and she just fainted, as Izuku rushed over and caught her at that second. As Inka would have just said to Izuku, "Could you go take her to the bench, please?" "Izuku?" "Yeah, no problem, Mum," Izuku said, taking her over to there. A couple of hours went by and Melissa woke up as Inko rapidly apologized for assuming that those two were together. She did apologize rapidly enough that she could hear giant wind pressures coming off of her. You guys may get that joke, I don't know. Let's just skip all the way to the entrance exam. I really fell asleep during this recording, so let's just skip all the way. As all those months went by, Izuku and Melissa talked a lot more as they got closer, and closer. Izuku and Melissa are gotten that close you can call them brother and sister, comparing of what they know. Every single time Izuku was around Melissa, he could feel butterflies in his stomach. So before the day of the entrance exam, Izuku went up to All Might and asked him about what this feeling was. If he told his mother about it, she'll probably snitch to Melissa, so Izuku told All Might about this, with All Might just saying, "Yes, I can finally give my pupil fatherly advice," All Might said, as All Might told Izuku about birds and the bees, but Izuku already knew about this, so it was nothing new, Izuku said. As All Might finally gave in and told Izuku about it, as Izuku would have just told All Might, saying that, "So if I feel this feeling is so it's love," Izuku said, with an innocent sounding voice. "Well, yeah, it is." As the day of the entrance exam finally arrived, with Izuku going down into the hallway, as Izuku saw a girl about to trip, Izuku rushed over and grabbed her by her backpack, pulling her up, as the girl turned around to him and told him, "Thank you for saving me," she said. "It must have been really bad luck to fall on my first day here," she said with a smiling giggle. As Izuku just said, "Please watch out for yourself next time," he said. As Izuku walked away from her, going into the hall to actually sit down and listen to President Mike's speech. "How are you doing, everybody?" President Mike shouted at the top of his lungs, trying to get everyone's attention. As President Mike just explained to them everything like he would do in canon, with Ida standing up, telling them it's a disgrace to the actual full school of My Hero Academia, that they are making so much of a mistake, like the big 0-pointer. "And you, Abaka there, shut up," he shouted, as Izuku just looked at him with a death glare, this making Ida get the cold shoulder to sit back down. As President Mike would have said, "Thank you, whoever made him sit down. So, let's continue with our speech," which he did so, as we do a little time skip of when they all went outside for their first entrance exam. If you guys are wondering what the points would be, I would say I'll put them on the screen at this very moment, or I'll just tell you right now, which I would do. Izuku second place, with Momo in first. Well, that's the only thing I can remember, so let's just carry on. Debated. As Izuku and Uraka was both standing next to each other in the entrance exam, Izuku was stretching to get ready to make sure his body was nice and limber for the entrance exam, as Uraka would have just tapped him on his shoulder. "Excuse me, thank you for saving me," she said. "Oh, you've already thanked me, no worries," Izuku said, as President Mike would have just said, 3, 2, 1, go! As everyone in the entrance exam started to run out to the front gates like they all would have done in canon, with Izuku using his ice power to actually slide himself across the floor, getting a couple of the robots to actually slip and get damaged, but not destroying them. Izuku would have seen this, as he would have thrown little bits of ice shards at them, cracking them in their actual cores, making them blow up, creating a mighty explosion across the area. Izuku would have continued to do this until the 3-pointers came around. For the 3-pointers, Izuku would have tried his best to try and destroy them with just ice shards. That wasn't working, so Izuku just decided to say, "Fuck it, I'm going all out," he said, as Izuku throws some ice shards into his hand, creating a giant mist of ice around his body in a circular motion, as Izuku threw his arm up, creating a giant glacier of ice, destroying 25, 3, 2, and 1 pointers in a row. Most of the teachers in the respective areas would have just said, "Whoa, what the hell?" they said, as they would have just done some more research into this kid. "Wait, he's quirkless? Actually, he's not. He's a late bloomer," All Might would have interjected, saying, as a girl with blackish, purplish hair would have looked over at Izuku with little lustful eyes. "He's adorable," she said, as Nezu would have caught wind of this. "Nemuri, he's 15. Back off," Nezu said, as Nemuri said, "Philly." As we cut back to Izuku's point of view with him destroying robots, Izuku would have managed to get over a couple of, 120 points of that. Destroying 3-pointers and plus that giant ice sculpture he did would have got him a lot of points as well. Izuku would have kept on destroying pointers after pointers of robots, getting him racking up more and more points, with him slowly running out of breath. Oh god, that took a lot out of me," Izuku said, panting, as Izuku felt some giant rumbling on the ground. Izuku would have paid attention to this and looked up at it, seeing a giant monster behemoth that was destroying building by building. The more it ran around, more it destroyed in its wake. Izuku thought, "There's no point in destroying that, it's a 0-pointer. I'm just gonna back up and go," Izuku said. Before he heard a scream, Izuku turned back around to see a girl with blackish purplish hair trapped under a robot. As Izuku would have rushed over at supersonic speeds trying to find a way to save her, Izuku found the only way to do it was to try and make pillars to make sure the bulking behemoth didn't actually make it to them. Izuku did that as it managed to somehow work, but it didn't at the same time. The moment Izuku arrived there and put the pillars up, the monster behemoth known as a zero-pointer broke through those little ice barriers and tried to pummel Izuku and the purple-haired girl. Before that happened, however, Izuku got really mad and past his limitations of using his ice quote-unquote quirk. We all know it's magic, you guys who are watching this video. Izuku passed his limitations and actually summoned a giant ice golem to hold the monster in place. Izuku and this wonder girl, let's just say that, Izuku and this girl actually went off and Izuku ran to her to safety. Just like the original, the zero-pointer would have fell down and blown up, with an explosion happening behind Izuku for dramatic effect. Izuku and the girl both went out of the arena and actually managed to meet up with Recovery Girl, so she can actually heal her. Izuku was about to walk off before he was stopped by the purple-haired girl. "Excuse me, but thank you very much," she said as Izuku looked back and said, "No problem, love," Izuku said, letting out a little wink for teasing her. She just blushed. "Alright, I'll see you in a bit then. My name's Jiro. Kayuki Jiro," she said. Izuku looked back around and said, "My name's Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you," he said, starting to walk off. As a couple of days later, Izuku would have actually got his acceptance letter into UA, as he would have got a call from Melissa as well at that time. "Hey Izuku, did you get your letter?" she said. "Yeah, I did, but I haven't opened it yet." "Is it okay if you put your webcam on, please?" she said, as Izuku turned his camera on to reveal the disc out of the packaging. The disc activated to reveal All Might, speaking to Izuku like he would in canon, but not as dramatic, because Izuku already had a power, quote-unquote magic of course, as people would think this is a quirk, but it's really not. As Izuku would have been accepted into Class 1A, as Melissa would have been really happy, but also sad that she couldn't go to Class 1A, of course, because of her being quirkless. So she took an opportunity and actually went for the making machines route. She's basically going for the support route. Izuku would have been really happy for her, as Izuku would have just let out a cute little smile that Melissa would have blushed at. A couple of days went by as Izuku got everything ready as he went out the front door like cannon. Izuku would have walked down the street and would have been recognized by a little bit of people that were in the entrance exam. They wouldn't have gone up to him for the example of him being, well, you know, as Izuku would have arrived at UA, taken off his shoes and put him into his locker. Izuku would have been standing out of Class 1A like the original, taking in, there must be a giant here, Jesus, the door's massive, Izuku said, as Izuku walked into the classroom to be greeted with Bakugo and Ida arguing like the original. Izuku went to sit down, as once the moment he sat down, however, the purple-headed girl would have gone right next to him and say, "Hi, you're Izuku Midoriya, right?" she said, as Izuku would have said, "Yes, I am, and oh, you must be the girl I saved," Izuku said, as Jiro would have just blushed at that, saying, "Yeah, I am," she said, as Izuku and Jiro would have talked for a little bit until Aizawa busted down the door like a pro god moves, dude, as Izuku would have just had everything like the original. By the time Izuku actually got into the change room, most people were staring at him for his body and everything like that. Most people would have come up to him asking him what his quirk was, as the word quirk caught Bakugo's ears. "Quirk? Me must smell quirk," Bakugo said, as Izuku would have caught the eye of Bakugo being very annoyed for some reason. As Izuku looked at Bakugo, with Bakugo looking away, scoffing at him, Izuku and everyone else would have arrived outside with Aizawa just saying, "You're 2 minutes late. Okay, then we'll make up for this in training." As Izuku and everyone else started their little run around the school for making it up to Aizawa. Everyone would have gone through the same things like the original with testing. Izuku would have thrown the ball first because he was actually number 1 in the entrance exam. Izuku would have actually used his smart tactic and actually threw the ball, and then immediately used an ice pillar to actually lift it up into the air as high as it could, raising it from the ground like a tree. Izuku would have managed to actually get around about 2,000 to 5,000 meters, depending on how far his ice could go. The more it went up, the thinner it became. The moment it got to 5,000 meter mark, it snapped and fell down. The moment it fell down, however, Aizawa managed to catch the debris with a scarf to make sure it didn't hurt any of the students in the process of this. Every single test would have been the same for everyone, but Izuku would have gone a lot bit higher. Thanks to his superhuman strength, Izuku managed to get around about 200 on grip, around about, I would say, at least past the sandbox. As for his side-to-side lunges, he was actually using some ice to actually slid himself side to side. It made it easier for him to do, so he basically said it was almost the same score as Todoroki, almost surpassing it, of course. As for the chart, Momo Yaoyorozu, Shoto Todoroki, Izuku Midoriya, Katsuki Bakugo, and Mineta in last. As everyone else's things would have been like the original, but bumped down one because of Izuku being in 3rd place. Seeing the scores that were on the board, Bakugo lost it and instantly attacked Izuku with explosions. As Bakugo was on top of Izuku, Bakugo threw an explosion at Izuku's face, as Izuku blocked it with ice. This annoyed Aizawa to the point he intervened instantly. "Katsuki Bakugo, principal's office now!" Aizawa shouted at him, as Katsuki would have just said, "Huh, damn nerd's useless. He wouldn't know anything even if it hit him in the fucking face," Bakugo shouted at him. "Alright, that's it. Principal's office now. You're out of my class," Bakugo shouted. "What? You can't do that. I'm the best one here." "Huh, best," Shoto said, scoffing. As we cut to Bakugo's point of view in the principal's office, Izuku was called to the principal's office a couple of minutes after Bakugo got there. As Bakugo explained, shouting of course, why Izuku shouldn't be in the hero course. "Katsuki Bakugo," Nezu said, "what do you want to do when you're a hero?" "I want to surpass all my no. What do you want to be as a hero?" Nezu said. "I'm going to be the richest hero of them all." "That's not what heroes do," Nezu said, as Bakugo just scoffed, saying, "Yeah, they do. They're only for the money." "Alright, you have one more chance, Bakugo. Flame upon Izuku or any other classmates like this again, you will be expelled from UA, and you'll be going to continue where we last left off with Izuku rushing into the UA. As Izuku arrived at UA, as Aizawa was standing at his desk, making sure everyone was in his class, Aizawa greeted Izuku, as Izuku went to go sit down. The moment Izuku sat down, however, Izuku was tapped on the shoulder by no other than Jiro, asking him, "What do you think they're going to do today in class?" With Izuku just shaking his shoulders, saying he doesn't know. The only thing he does know is Aizawa told him yesterday that they might be going on a field trip somewhere, but after that I don't know, Izuku said, as everyone else was just listening in to Aizawa's lecture as the class began, as Aizawa told them all that they're going to be going to the USJ today, as the day went like normal, with everyone getting into their hero costumes and meeting Aizawa at the front side of the bus. As Aizawa counted everyone who was there, and the only person that was actually missing was Izuku Midoriya. As before Aizawa could say where Izuku was, Izuku came running saying, "I'm here, wait, wait." Izuku said, out of breath. "Sorry I'm late. I just had problems putting this on," Izuku said. "That's an ice petrifier, isn't it? Isn't that what you use to get rid of some ice on your body?" "Yeah, it is actually. I'm just wondering if the actual support course made it. They actually made it in a day, believe it or not. It was actually really good they did, because I didn't know we were actually going on this trip today." As Aizawa just coughed. Everyone get onto the bus now or we're going to be late for the USJ. As everyone hopped onto the bus, as everything went like canon with their seating arrangements. As everyone was talking into the bus, as someone brought up how Midoriya's ice quirk kinda resembles something, but they couldn't remember what. As something clicked inside of Sue's head. Hey, Midoriya, your quirk kinda reminds me of a weird guy who is in the what's his name? A weird legend that was on about people who had ice powers before time even existed. Is that weird, haha? As Izuku just nodded, saying, yeah, that's kind of weird, but I don't picture myself being some form of god. I'm literally human. I don't understand what you mean by that, Izuku said, and confused. I'm only kidding, Sue said, as she just giggled at it a little bit. As all conversations on the bus went like the canon. So we're just gonna do a little fast forward for when they actually got to the USJ building facility. As they all arrived there, as Aizawa told everyone to get off to the bus. Okay everyone, off the bus now. We're going to meet a certain hero, Aizawa said. As Aizawa walked them up to the stairs of the USJ and opened the door to be greeted with a woman in a pump plane outfit that looked like it was meant for outer space travel. As Araka took one more look at her, and seeing it was the hero 13, as she squealed internally, but that turned into outside squealing, fangirling over her idol. Oh my god, it's fucking 13! Oh god. As 13 would have just said, calm down students. As she would have just said and introduced everything like the original canon. As 13 held up 3 of her closed fingers, stating that All Might was reaching his limit today, and that he had to relax for the rest of the day. Izuku saw this and caught on what she was saying, because Izuku trained with All Might. Of course he would know his secret by now. Before 13 could even finish her sentence, she was rudely interrupted by a giant portal opening in the middle of the USJ. As 13 looked over to see this as well, but Kirishima beat her to it. Cool, how manly, we're fighting villains! Aizawa looked back over and reciprocated that, saying, those aren't fake villains, they're real. Everyone get back now, Aizawa said, bearing his scarf at the ready. Most of the students were shocked, thinking they're going to be fighting real villains on their first day. Mineta said, shouting out, I'm not ready for this. As Aizawa told all of the students to get out of the USJ as fast as they could. But when Aizawa told them to all go back, most of them stayed at the front, shivering in fear, standing still like they're in a standstill. As Aizawa shouted at them, telling them to run now, as the students finally snapped out of it and started to run. But before they could get to the exit, they were interrupted by Kurogiri, as Kurogiri started to actually try and sweep them all into one portal to try and scatter them from out the USJ and take them off one by one, instead of all at once. As everyone being scattered around USJ, every single position is just like the original Kana counterparts. As Izuku would have described a plan to actually get them all out of there, instead of actually using giant amounts of wind pressure in canon, because in this series he does not have one for all. As Izuku decided to put up a plan, as Izuku put his hand over the boat, saying that he's going to time this correctly, and once I've timed it, I need you all to run exactly when I put my quirk onto the water, okay? As they all nodded in fury of them dying, basically. As Izuku said, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, 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 now, now, now! Izuku said, putting most of his water and ice powers to good use, freezing most of the water in its wake. As most of the villains who were actually in the surrounding area when Izuku used his quirk, they were frozen solid, frozen in ice, like their sculptures. As Izuku carried on running, as Izuku released his quirk from the water, making all of the villains sink to the bottom of the weight of their own bodies and ice combined, making most of them suffocate, which ones don't have water-based breathing quirks. As they got to land, Izuku saw everything like he did in canon with Shigaraki and the Nomu. Izuku managed to actually avoid their compensation, or their conversation with Shigaraki like the canon. Instead of Sue actually almost getting decayed, that won't happen in this original. As Shigaraki would have just noticed them halfway up the stairs, as Shigaraki would have just shouted, Nomu, Kill those brats, Shigaraki said. As Izuku saw this, with Izuku instantly putting up a glacier of ice in middle of the USJ, just avoiding Aizawa's broken and bruised body from the Nomu, as this glacier of ice would have made contact with the Nomu, freezing half of its body like what Todoroki did in the canon, as Aizawa would have actually managed to cancel out its super strength. Just for his last bit of strength, he actually managed to pull off, with the Nomu being stuck in that glacier of ice, with half of its body being gone. But what they didn't know was, the Nomu actually managed to break away from the actual ice pillar that Izuku made with his quirk. Izuku actually being shocked at this, knowing that the Nomu had super strength. Izuku was still shocked it could still move with half of its body being full on broken and decayed and gone. Izuku was really confused at this, so Izuku decided to say, "What the fuck? How the hell is it still moving?" Izuku said. Aizawa was shocked at this, but he couldn't barely move anymore. All of his strength was almost gone, so he had to use it really wisely. "Izuku," Sue said. "What is it? Get out of here now, before the Nomu gets you. Come on, let's go." As Izuku managed to turn his back for literally just a millisecond before the Nomu grabbed him by his arm, they swung back and flung him all the way back to where Aizawa is, hitting the glacier with its back, making Izuku cough up spit, as Izuku ragdolled all the way back down to the floor where Aizawa was, with Izuku landing straight right next to Aizawa's almost dead looking corpse. Izuku looked over back at Aizawa, struggling to get up from his back being bruised and broken more or less, so Izuku managed to use his ice power to actually surround his wound or broken part of its back to make sure it was frozen solid, to make it replicate that it was actually fixed. In retrospect, it really not, as Izuku managed to actually get onto his 2 feet, just struggling to get up from his back being shattered by the Nomu's only toss, as the Nomu was just walking slowly to Izuku, with Shigaraki just shouting out, "Nomu, kill the brat!" As the Nomu actually charged right at Izuku with a full of 10 to 100% mighty smash, as Izuku managed to evade, but the wind pressure still got him, sending him flying back. Just remember, Ida's been sent out this time earlier, so this is going to be fun, as Izuku was sent flying back into the USJ wall, hitting it, making the ice that Izuku put into his back shatter and send it right into his skin, making it bleed out, as Izuku coughed up a little bit of blood, saying, "I'm not gonna make this out if I don't go all out myself," Izuku said in a weak tone. "Okay, you wanna fight, Nomu? I'll give you one," as Izuku's body started to surround itself in ice, like a little circle at that, surrounding Izuku's lower body, making it seem like Izuku was about to go full power. Instead of wind pressure, it is ice, as Izuku launched a barrage of ice shards and ice pillars and all sorts at the Nomu, only doing little amounts of damage at the Nomu because of its regeneration and super strength piling through it like a champion, as Izuku was breathing heavily. "What the hell? Why aren't you going down?" Izuku said. Normally this would actually work, but looks like it isn't. "Oh shit, I'm gonna die," Izuku said. As before the Nomu could even land one more hit on Izuku, the loud boom was heard at the USJ doors. "Don't worry, little ones. I am here," All Might said, not smiling like the original canon, as All Might saw that Izuku, his disciple, was bloody, beaten, and bruised, as Aizawa's was as well. This more infuriating All Might, calling up more embers of power from One for All, charging straight at the Nomu with full intent to kill. As All Might clashed with the Nomu, you could hear wind pressure coming from every single punch that All Might let out. Every single punch was a furious smash. Every single punch collided with the Nomu, as All Might did a 100% plus Ultra Detroit Smash! All Might shouted at the top of his lungs, sending the Nomu flying out of the USJ like the original. We're not having the little fight between, Bakugo Shigaraki. That's not happening at the moment. All Might came early. So that compensation that Izuku actually had with Bakugo when Bakugo took down Kurogiri. Kurogiri's still up, so that's the difference in this canon. As Izuku would have just been helped up by All Might. Remember, All Might didn't exert himself. Remember, he still has One for All, so he hasn't lost too much of his time yet. As All Might helped up Izuku and Aizawa and rushed him straight out of the USJ, seeing ambulances and firemen and police officers being there, standing there at the ready. As All Might give them the okay to rush in, as a hurry and SWAT of people came rushing into the USJ to take care of the injured and almost killed 13. As the couple of days went by, Inko was really worried for her son. He's been hospitalized once already, as Inko would have been telling this to one of the members of staff. I want to withdraw my Izuku from this UA course, Inko said. I'm sorry, but that's not up to you here, it's up to Izuku. When he comes to this, he's treated like an adult, and he's going to be treated as one throughout these couple of years. We're going to train him to the point he doesn't need any help, or he could actually need help in the future. We want all of our students to exceed us and become stronger than us, so we want them to have the best life as we can possibly give them. Until Izuku regains consciousness, he'll be deciding if he stays or goes, Desu said to Rinko. A couple of hours later, 4 days and 1 hour since Izuku's been in a coma, Izuku woke up to the feeling of Melissa by his side, or someone by his side. Izuku opened his eyes to see a blonde-haired girl laying right next to him. Izuku just said, "Oh," Izuku said, as the woman right next to him just woke up saying, Izuku, you okay?" she said in a worried tone, as Izuku just says, "Yeah, I'm okay, I'm just really in pain," Izuku said, as Recovery Girl just walked into the room saying, "Oh, you're awake. Good. Nezu wants you in his office, but seems like you're too much in pain, so I'll just bring him here," Recovery Girl said, as Nezu came walking through the door in his all furry glory. "He is not naked, don't say that." "Ah, Mr. Midori, you're finally awake. I would like to talk to you about what your mom suggested a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, to us, about your enrollment into UA. Izuku said, "What do you mean?" "Well, we want to get your opinion on this. Would you like to leave UA? And if you do, you will be kicked out," Nezu said. "Wait, what? I don't want to be kicked out. What you on about?" Izuku said. Inko came walking through the door a couple of minutes later after Nezu said that. "So, have you told him yet?" "Yes, I have, and he doesn't want to leave. So, yeah, here's your answer, Inko." "Izuku, please just leave. I don't want to let you get hurt." "Why? I've got a quirk, Mom. Why are you so worried? You said I couldn't be here without one, so I got one. So I don't see what's wrong with it," Izuku said. "The only reason why I was injured is because I wasn't trained hard enough, or I didn't train myself hard enough, and I wasn't concentrated on the fight. I was more concentrated on how everyone else was, and how they were doing, and make sure everyone wasn't injured," Izuku said. "I was too busy trying to save Sue and Mineta from those villains on top of the lake, and trying to get them back to the rest of the class." "Fine, we'll keep you in here for another couple of months, but if this keeps on happening, we will take you out of UA," Inko said. "Wait, what?" Izuku sat there frozen as Melissa just hugged him with him snapping out of it. "Come on, Izuku, it's fine," she said with a big smile on her face. As we're going to skip a couple of weeks, 2 weeks to be precise, all the way to the sports festival. Everything else would have gone like canon, with Todoroki actually declaring a declaration of war to Izuku. As the fights and everything went like canon, with Izuku actually running past most of them using his ice, blocking most of the contestants off from actually getting to the first place mark. Izuku got first place, actually beating Bakugo and Todoroki, infuriating Bakugo's emotions to a point of bubbling over, as Izuku was actually picking his teams, but most of them of Class 1A, B, and C, and D both came rushing over to Izuku, asking him to join their team so they can win easier. As Izuku's team remained as what it would actually think it would be, with Melissa actually in the support course. She would have been on Izuku's team, being the second one from the back. Araka, Jiro, and those will be the three people on Izuku's team, with Jiro and Melissa both staring at each other intently, as Izuku felt the tension in between those two, as Izuku just asked them to think which one would be on the top, as they both said in unison, saying, "No, we're fine down here," they both said in a furious tone. Izuku not understanding this because he dense as a motherfucker, he wouldn't have understood. As Izuku's team lost their 1 million headband to actually Ida's team, which consisted of what it would be in the canon, with Todoroki having the 1 million plaque band, but Izuku still didn't get the loss, and then like this canon, Izuku would have actually managed to get Bakugo's headband, ensuring them second place, with Bakugo being pushed down to 5th, just making it into the actual finals, with Bakugo being furious at Midoriya. "I hope that bastard gets into the last round so I can pummel him into the ground," Bakugo shouted furiously internally, and with him punching the ground like cannon, this would all gone the same. As Izuku and everyone was in the changing rooms getting ready and having a little lunch break before their next events, as Ojiro would have actually come over to Izuku, led the original, and told him about a certain person, Shinso to be more precise. About his mind went blank, as Izuku cut him off saying, "You shouldn't tell people this, but thank you, Ojiro. It looks like he has some form of mind control, so I'll keep a good eye out for that. Thank you very much, Ojiro," Izuku said, as the rounds begin. As Izuku walked out into the stage or stadium, being greeted with a smiling Shinso or depressed Shinso, depending on the way you want to look at it. Shinso was staring down Izuku, thinking, and the moment the round began, Izuku was being held insults by Shinso, saying that, "Your friends are weak, they're pathetic. They should have just gave up. He shouldn't have gave up his space like that." As Izuku almost started to talk, but Izuku just used his ice and knocked him straight out of the arena, getting the first victory. As every other fight went like cannon, but Bakugo's fight went a little bit more furious. Bakugo threw multiple explosions at Araka, and making her more injured like the cannon, with broken bones, broken ribs, and a fractured head. As the moment they announced that Uraka had that many injuries, everyone shouted to try and expel Bakugo straight then and there from the stage and from UA itself, thinking they would allow their students to hurt each other that much. "They're pathetic," one of the students said. "What do you mean by that?" "Bakugo's pathetic. He thinks he can do what he wants, and once that's settled in, he won't understand anything anymore. The only thing he understands is, I'm Bakugo, I am big terrorism, go boom boom. I am king, #1 hero." Every fight went like cannon, with Izuku and Todoroki's fight being extremely different. Izuku wouldn't have told Todoroki to actually use his fire side because Izuku's playing strategically. Izuku would actually clash with Todoroki's ice in the middle, with Izuku's ice actually being a little tiny bit stronger than Todoroki's in this timeline. Izuku would consistently fire an ice after ice pillar at Todoroki, making him more and more full of ice, as Todoroki would have just collapsed to the floor of exhaustion from using his ice ability or ice quirk too much. As every single fight went like cannon, Tokoyami versus Momo, and so on and so forth like that, as the fight with Bakugo and Izuku was commenced, as present mic counted down 3, 2, 1, and that's it. I would like to thank you all for indulging yourself in my video thus far. This is one of my longer videos this week because I had a little bit more free time to actually record my video. There should be 3 videos out this week. Sometime around Monday and sometime around Tuesday I should be releasing 2 more videos. And also, if I didn't say in the beginning, I also have a Twitter account now, so you guys can DM me and so on and so forth. And also, one last thing, you guys say penetroscopic tone peliconiosis. I don't know how you would say that, but I'll put in the title screen right now. And could you guys spam that letter for letter in the actual comment section down below for you guys who are watching the premiere at this very moment. I want you guys to spam 1 in the chat if you guys actually enjoyed this series so far. I'll be releasing part 5 as soon as possible. Thank you all for watching.